Hello, my name is Dan Van Toff. I am a statistician from the Northern Plains region, and I will be covering Section B, Acreage, Production, and Cash Sales. I'm going to start with talking about the changes from last year to this year, and I have good news for you. There are no changes. You can see the familiar table by looking at the picture in the slide. As an aside, the table is still the full length of the page. I just cut it down so it would fit nicely into the slide. Since there's no new material, I'm going to jump right into what we need to collect and why. First, what are we collecting? Section B collects harvested acres, total production, the amount of the production used on the farm, if any, and cash sales, also, if any. Well, this is an easy section to present because this table normally comes in with few, if any, errors. There are a few things to be mindful of. Include any acres that are not harvested yet, but are planned to be harvested with their estimated production, use, and sales. For the total production, do include the landlord's share of production as well, if applicable. Use on the operation. One key to understanding ARMS 3 is to understand the relationship between sections. Oftentimes, the answers to one section will tip you off to what needs to be recorded in another section. Production used on farm is a good example of this. If an operator reports production used on farm, make a mental note, or a paper one, that livestock can be reported in Section C. Also, certain commodities, like soybeans, are rarely used on farm. Please leave a note if you run across a commodity that is rarely used on farm, but is being used on farm, so we can better understand what is happening as we review that survey in the office. Finally, cash sales. Remember, it is possible to record sales without production if the previous year's crop was sold during the year. Additionally, it is possible to have production but no cash sales, but again, like production used on farm, this should tip you off to what needs to be filled out later in the survey. If there is production above what is used on the operation, but no cash sales, the production should be recorded in one of the following sections. Section E, marketing contracts. Section F, deferred payments, or recorded as an increased value in crops stored on farm in Section I, farm assets. Now that we know what we are recording, let's move on to the why. Why do we collect this information? ARMS 3 is the only NASS survey that surveys on-farm economics, as Eric discussed when talking about the purpose of the survey. Section B helps with this by taking an inventory of crops produced and cash sales. Crop production is obviously vital to farmers, and we cannot measure economic health without understanding crop production. Furthermore, Section B also allows researchers to track diversity and compare economic situations across different farm types. Maybe corn and soybean farmers are facing a much different economic environment than vegetable farmers, for example. Lastly, Section B data is used by other agencies and researchers in a variety of different ways. One example I found was AMS uses this data to track grain shipments by commodities and mode of transportation, which is something I didn't know about until looking into uses of ARMS 3 data. Alright, now that we've discussed the why, let's finish with a few friendly reminders. First, even though some farmers give very exact data, only record to the 10th of an acre if you are recording potatoes or tobacco, or nursery crops, which should be recorded in square feet if under protection, or 10th of an acre if in the open. Second, don't forget to include any crops that belong in the other oil seeds, such as mustard or rapeseed, or any of the many crops that belong in the all other crops categories. I listed industrial hemp, haylage, popcorn, sweet corn, and sweet potatoes as a few examples of the many that could be recorded in the all other crops. But remember, there are many, many others. Finally, I'm going to use this last point to tell you a little bit about myself. I have 4 daughters, ages 6.5, almost 5 or 5 depending on when you're watching this video, a 2-year-old, and a new one this past September. I have learned many things from them, one of which is matchy-matchy. Our girls often like to pick out their clothes together, and the baby's clothes, so they can match each other in some way. I included a picture of the oldest 2 matching. On this particular day, it was unicorn shirts, pink pants, and ponytails, to show an example of them matching. How does this relate to ARMS 3, you may be asking yourself? Well, farmers may not always give you the right or matching unit when reporting. Maybe they give you bales instead of tons for dry hay, or they don't know how many tons they cut for corn silage, but they do know the field average bushels per acre. Please record what you can, and leave a note describing when units don't match, or when you run across any other unique situation. Notes are always very much appreciated. That concludes Section B. But before I go, I want to thank you for your hard work and flexibility. We realize over-the-phone data collection is not your preferred way of completing ARMS 3, but want to thank you for giving your best efforts in a less than ideal situation. Thanks again, and enjoy the rest of the training.